everyone. Welcome to another episode of Beirut Buzz. This is Taleen. While we spend quite a bit of time on this podcast talking about the inescapable things that are horribly wrong in this country, we're here to report today's subject is a positive one. And with me today, I have Tarek and Ralph from Sawti. And I'd love if you guys would tell me who you are, what your role is in Sawti, and then we can dive into what Sawti is as an initiative.
Yeah, hi Taleen. Thank you for having us, first of all. I'm Tarek Khalil, based in Lebanon. And I'm currently working with Sawti mostly on the mobilization team, which is trying to mobilize not just for the upcoming elections, but also in general to just kind of push people to become more active citizens in Lebanon and become more engaged in the whole process of politics.
Hi, my name is Ralph. I'm also on the mobilization team, but I'm based in New York, and I help do pretty much the same, but focusing more on the expats outside of Lebanon.
Can one of you tell me what exactly Sawti is? When did it all start? What gave you the idea to start this initiative?
So Ralph and I were both not present at the launch of Sawti and that brainstorming phase, but it happened almost 2 years ago, a little bit after, maybe a couple of months after the onset of the revolution, and basically was created to get people organized and give people information about the upcoming elections. And then later on down the road, we realized that elections is just one milestone of this whole process and this whole movement that's happening in Lebanon, and that we should kind of expand and start, encouraging people to look up alternative parties, join them, learn about government, and also learn about how to vote and the importance of voting.
I really think that this is this initiative, finding this initiative, it's really, really important, especially in the political scene in Lebanon. It's a bit of a mess. And what's even a bigger mess is people's understanding of how things work in Lebanon. And honestly, it's very confusing. No one really knows what's going on for the most part. We really have to thank our educational system, صفوف التربية that we've had since brevet, that were completely useless in telling us what political parties are, how exactly we go vote. The process overall, we have no idea how that works. At least on my end, I genuinely have no idea how that works. And just knowing what political party is the one that's right for you, it's just it's a really big mess.
Yeah, and I think honestly, what's bigger than that? Sure, our education system has something to do with it, but even bigger than that is that all we've known, and mostly what our parents' generation has known, is the single same system اللي هو زبائنية, basically clientelism, which is basically where you're not really an active member in the political process. You're more there as a customer. You take whatever crumbs fall your way. You don't feel like you have any active role. You don't have any say in what's happening. You're more a victim. And I know now after the August 4th explosion that has a different terminology, but you really are just a victim of the political class rather than an active participant. And that's, I think, one of the biggest things that Sawti with this initiative wanted to change. It's not just, as Sada said, elections, but it's more of the mentality of active citizenship. And this doesn't even just stop with elections, right? This part of it is elections. Part of it is after elections, after people win, people lose. The process doesn't stop there, right? There's accountability based off of platforms that you ideally vote on. So the whole system, and I saw this even as a student in AEB, right? When we were active in the political process there, even in AEB, that people saw as this beacon of education for whatever reason in the Middle East. It's baffling to see how prevalent and how strong these established political parties, the same ones that led Lebanon into the civil war, they were by far the dominant parties on campus. And we see that now change after October 17th and with more secular clubs rising all over the country. But yeah, there's a lot of reasons why the current political system is as well established as it is. And Sawti is just trying to do its part in kind of getting people in Lebanon aware of different alternative parties, and also expats that we saw get very excited after October 17th. Even speaking based on my experience in New York, I had just moved I hadn't been here for, I guess, a year almost when the revolution started. There was a quick excitement that was effortless. There were masses of people trying to get organized, trying to see what's the best way we could help back home. And we felt that like Sawti is one way through which we could channel all this energy for ideally more long-term potential benefits for Lebanon.
Yeah, I completely agree about like seeing all this excitement among the expats was honestly very heartwarming at first. Like after the revolution, I moved to Germany, and it was really heartbreaking because like I took part in the first few days and I was going down and protesting, and then I had to leave. I got my visa, I left. I came back, but that's another story. So I was really just looking to see, once I'm of age, how exactly like the voting process is going to go for me as an expat. I don't really have to worry about that now, but are you guys of legal age? Can you guys vote?
Yes.
Yeah, both of us can.
Have you either of you voted, either like as an expat or as a local?
Have you voted, Ralph?
I haven't yet. So I actually moved here right after the last elections in 2018, and I had just become eligible to vote. And as an expat, I know that was the first time expats were allowed to vote, but there was problems with like the links, and there wasn't really much prep that was put into it. So I think I missed the deadline back then. So no, I haven't voted yet.
Okay.
Yeah, same here. I didn't vote. I was based in Lebanon, but there was a lot of like political apathy from my end. You know, I didn't really care. I thought that we would never be able to make a change, so I never really cared about voting before. But look at me now.
Yeah, that's great character development. Yeah, I agree. Anna, come in. I was like this at first. I'd have cousins that were eligible to vote, and they would tell me that they're not gonna vote, they're not gonna take part. And I was the type of person that was like, لا يلا, if you vote, change is gonna happen. روح على القليل حط ورقة بيضاء. And then I like, as I got older, I realized إنه not voting is a horrible idea, and then just going in وتحط ورقة بيضاء, that's even like maybe also part of the problem, and part of like why we never shook off كل هالpolitical partisanship that we have. Maybe to a certain extent هيدي قصة الكلاينتيليزم وقصة إنه we don't really have a very clear understanding of politics, or people بيقولوا أنا ما بفهم سياسة وما بدي أفهم سياسة لأنه it's so complicated، أو ما بدهم يكونوا those type of people that engage in political conversations هالقد. I think this was like they took this to their advantage, like the political leaders اللي موجودين هلا, they took this to their advantage. يقولوا أوكي هالناس ما همهم يصوتوا, they don't really care, بيروحوا بيصوتوا مهم البلد بعده ماشي. I think like this was the mentality for the most part. كل واحد إنه okay, I'm alive, I'm well, ولادي منيح, عندي مصلحتي عند هالأحزاب المعينة. بس now like we've reached a point where we realized إنه ما في حدا حيوقف حدك regardless who you vote for. ما حدا حيوقف حدك قد ما
الدولة لازم توقف حدنا.
Exactly.
That's why we have to vote in the right people, and I think that's part of the like that's what led to all of this. Like Ralph was saying, the clientelism, and like with that clientelism comes a fake sense of politics. That's why people يمكن يقولوا أنا ما بفهم سياسة أو ما بدي أعرف, because it's not politics, right? It's just identity games and sectarian games. It's never been about actual like issues, like economic issues or social issues. So that's what we're trying to change, especially by promoting these alternative parties, because they actually have stances on specific issues, right? It's not like the traditional parties that are just like, okay, you're born into this taifa, so you're automatically gonna get benefits from this person, so you go vote for them. That's totally wrong. هذا مفهوم غلط يعني للسياسة كليا.
And sorry, Taleen. And just quickly to Tarek's point, I think it's important we make a quick distinction between Sawti and the alternative parties that are actually on the ground, organizing, forming, developing their political identities, developing their platforms, developing their potential alliances amongst each other. And Sawti's main goal is to be a platform for these alternative parties. Sawti itself is not a political party, and that's very important to clear up. It will not be running in any elections as Sawti. Sawti is merely there as a platform to help give these new political parties that are actually forming, that will potentially run for elections, a platform to be heard by potential voters, to be heard by potential citizens. And Sawti doesn't encourage anyone on their platform to, if they're interested in whatever alternative party it may be, to learn more about it, to join it, to question it, to push it forward, to help develop it. Because no matter how successful Sawti is, right? We were talking before about what Abaida or not voting at all. At the end of the day, you need someone you believe in to vote for. So Sawti and these alternative parties do definitely complement each other. And the hope is Sawti brings kind of the masses, specifically outside of Lebanon, and those alternative parties on the ground are able to continue doing their work. Hopefully, there will be some sort of united alternative front, now specifically talking about elections, in which those two could kind of come in like a perfect marriage to get the result we're hoping for.
I really think the fact that there is a platform, like a bridge between the citizen and the alternative, that's really important. خاصة هلا, like after COVID, I don't want to say COVID was a good thing, but like to a certain extent, the fact that COVID happened, everything going online, everyone being more concerned with social media, it was a lot easier for Sawti to get this platform, the literal voice in the literal sense يعني. وبحس إنه لو we weren't converted to online, maybe this wouldn't have been as convenient.
So yeah, I definitely think COVID did help with that, not just with kind of bringing people closer together, but even for me personally, right, as someone who wants to organize expats abroad, I think it did kind of show you that the potential is limitless. There's no reason why I can't reach Lebanese people in Brazil, I can't reach Lebanese people across Europe, even though I'm in New York. There's no reason why I can't reach people in the Gulf. So it kind of, not just it gives you more opportunity, but it does kind of add pressure on you, because really there is no excuse for us not to be able to gather the information we need to give voters, to reach as many potential voters as possible. And yeah, that's all because people got more comfortable doing things online, communicating online, organizing online, definitely due to COVID.
ايه يعني نحن all of our work هلا نحن we're working remotely, we're not in office. It was so much easier يعني people to get to know how to use websites, how to create their own platform to be heard. يعني I heard about Sawti when I was a staff writer for the Phoenix Daily وعملوا a partnership with Sawti. That was the first time I heard about Sawti. And then after the protests that happened on August 4, like a few weeks ago, we were really just like deliberating what exactly we're going to do, like the content we're going to be creating afterwards. Kermel, we don't want it to be insensitive, at the same time we want to keep the ball rolling. يعني مش إنه نهار الناس تنزل تتظاهر وخلص إنه الناس سمعوا صوتهم. That's not where things end. يعني بدنا people to be like considered بعدين بالمستقبل شو بده يصير exactly. How the protests on August 4 or October 17 كيف actually they're put into action لما they start learning about active citizenship, voter turnout, civic engagement, كل هالأخبار. So we really wanted to keep talking about it. ما فيها, you can't just stop talking about politics or about voting or about تغير وضع البلد, because like protesting isn't going to do anything إلا إذا you actually want tangible change. بنفس الوقت after voting it doesn't end there, لأنه that's not how politics works. إنه that's not how being an active citizen works. مش يعني بتروح بتصوت and you hope for the best. There are multiple steps afterwards or before or during. We really just want people to be aware شو exactly it means to be an active citizen. I think Sawti really cares about هيدا definition of being an active citizen.
Yeah, 100%, and we've seen that the same kind of after the initial peak of excitement and all this energy towards protests, even abroad, right? There was kind of this plateau of okay, طيب, we're here, we're in New York, we're protesting in front of the consulate, in front of UN, in like a random park. Okay, but and then to what end? يعني? How are we really showing our support in a positive, kind of measurable way towards Lebanon, other than just fundraising, right? Because at the end of the day, I don't think, unfortunately now, I don't think there's any Lebanese person outside of Lebanon that's making money in any foreign currency that isn't already supporting their family financially. So taking that as a common denominator that doesn't really need to be discussed any further. How else are we organizing for more of a long term rather than just like putting these band-aids on like bigger problems? And that's another way Sawti was kind of born.
I think إنه قصة where they think إنه some things just eventually die out. I think هيدي العقلية I don't want to say عقلية, just this habit of letting things die out even though they're like so important. It's really hard to shake off اللبنانية. يعني after October 17 كل الناس إنه أوكي ويلا وثورة وبدنا ننزل كل يوم وبدنا to throw back مسيل دموع fight و literally die on the streets عشوائي. Then after a while خلاص people just stopped going. They weren't as motivated. Maybe قالوا إنه خلاص ما بقى حيتغير شيء بالبلد. They think إنه عن جد it's a dead end. I really don't blame anyone لأنه صراحة we've all been at that point where we're like خلاص أنا my only solution is to actually leave. بس هلا we're having this conversation وعم نقول إنه لا حتى when you leave you still have this responsibility as a citizen. يعني أنا لو I was still abroad I would still be considering لمين بدي صوت وكيف وليش ولأنه just staying in this very toxic like loop it's damaging to us واللي جايين بعد منا. يعني ما بدنا this country to be something that you just تربى هون و you leave behind or you just تحمل حالك بتفلت تأسس حالك برا to start a family there وما يعرفوا what it means to be Lebanese. If you really think about it that hurts your feelings it really makes you like so disappointed إنه لا أنا ما بدي أكون مضطر أترك بلدي. I want things to be good. I want Lebanon to be an option for me ولعائلتي ولأولادي for my entire family يعني anyone else that wants to stay in Lebanon or kind of has to stay in Lebanon بهالوضع. It's really hard to leave. After October 17 just seeing how things changed, how people started caring more عن الوضع about kicking out political parties, it was amazing. يعني being on the streets و protesting, being abroad, تجتمع مع هاللبنانية that you've never met before in your life, but you're all like under the same umbrella, having the same goal إنه بدكم تغيروا. And that was amazing. هاي الفترة it was عن جد every single Lebanese person knows how it felt that day. برياض الصلح عن جد unexplainable قد ايه we felt like citizens ولبنانية قبل كل شيء. مش إنه حدا سني أو شيعي أو مسيحي أو درزي ما كان فيها barrier that's always been at the forefront, you know. بس one thing I really wanted to talk about is إنه هيدي aggression towards فكرة political parties. like أنا after ثورة أنا عرفت إنه لا أنا مستحيل صوت حيلا حزب. أنا بدي صوت an independent party or independent candidates. بس هيدي aggression towards political parties I think it's still an issue now لأنه they don't really understand. They think إنه Lebanese people they have this mentality إنه لا political party that's a bad thing. ما بدنا political parties بدنا نخلص منها. So I think like this is another like obstacle that we have to overcome.
Yeah, أكيد. Honestly, to your point earlier, right? You were saying that you can't really blame people for having less of a tendency to be ready to go down to the streets and protest and all the same thing. In the very same mentality, you can't really blame people for having such a negative idea of political parties, because what do we really know? All our political parties are what? Are political parties of the Civil War. They're the political parties that are now causing Lebanon to be in what you could define as a blackout across whatever you want to define it as, be it fuel, be it food, be it whatever, what have you. So there's a lot of reason as to why there's such a almost like this negative allergic reaction to the idea of political parties, because all they know are these political parties that are established now. So with Sawti, what we'd like to do is show them that, first of all, there is no choice in not participating in politics, right? Because at the end of the day, no matter how rich you might think you be, no matter how connected you might think you be, at the end of the day, the people in power control basic necessities that you can't overcome. You're not going to have your own gas station. You're not going to have your own pharmacy. You're not going to have your own hospital. You're not going to be able to be so self-sustainable to the point where you're totally immune from the people in power. And if we've learned anything from the hardships that are happening right now, it's that basic fact. We all need to participate politically. Not only is it something, it's not like a good to have. No, this is an absolute necessity for you to live in a civil society. You need to be aware, you need to be educated on your political options, you need to be aware on the decisions they make, and And you need to not only vote them into office, you need to also make sure that once they're voted into office based off of a specific platform, they actually hold up to their side of the bargain. When they're telling you, I want to be elected in order to change the public transport system in Lebanon, you're there, you're not waiting 4 years, 6 years, what have you. You're following up year by year, month by month, seeing where's the progress on this, what is actually happening after I trusted you with my vote to better my life, specifically now in Lebanon. Whoever's going to win the next elections, it's not going to be some sort of, they're not there to just take advantage of the treasures of Lebanon. There's a huge problem that Lebanon needs to be removed out of. And it's not just going to be something that the next people that win elections are, but for the next few elections, political parties are going to have platforms that are really constructive to help deal with all the difficulties that Lebanon is facing through today. And Sawti wants to show all these people that have this negative reaction to political parties that there is no alternative to political parties. There are alternative political parties, but there's no single hero who's going to come, who's going to rise from this revolution. And you always get this question, okay, مين قائد الثورة? Who's leading this revolution? How can you have a revolution without a leader? And to me, honestly, sorry, but it's complete nonsense. Like, this isn't a debate. To me, even seeing right now, people aren't going down to the streets as much. That's not as important as the organization that's happening behind closed doors. Having these new political parties develop, not just as political parties, but we're seeing across universities, we have more clubs that are being developed, more independent secular clubs across different universities, more than we've ever seen before. Having different consulates, like we saw in the Consulate of Engineers and Architects, having great success in their elections. All these things help create a foundation of political awareness, political participation among Lebanese citizens, not just actually Lebanese citizens, but also Lebanese expats abroad. And that's something that's essential. We might be late to that party, but it doesn't mean that we could just skip all this, building all of this foundation and jump towards the next elections, because at the end of the day, sure, like Lebanon's going through hardships now, but you can't get out of it without having something that's well-rooted, well-established for the future.
So my dad's a pharmacist, وهو آخر انتخابات كمان ترشح to be part of the نقابة, he went as independent. He's planning to do that again this year. I think their elections are in November, I'm not sure. But we still see هيدا struggle when independent people candidates trying to break through the ceiling, هيدا barrier إنه مسيطرين الأحزاب. The fact إنه I think لأنه it's in the pharmaceutical sector, مسألة الأدوية, it's very sensitive. I think إنه الأحزاب have their hand إيدهم هيك مسيطرين على الموضوع أكتر, which is letting them overpower independent candidates. But it's so good to see إنه في ناس they're actually trying. But there's still this mentality, يعني بسمعها من بيي وبسمعها من other independent candidates that he speaks to, إنه ما بدنا نكون عم نترشح كحزب. I think that's a very bad mentality. مثل ما هلا كنا عم نحكي إنه أحزاب are kind of ما في alternative to political parties, having political parties بالبلد. They have to be there لأنه you need someone or a group to agree with, a group to know they're going to be there for you, will keep their end of the bargain, will make sure they're going to be keeping their promises, doing what they say they will be doing. I'm not sure what exactly the steps we're going to have to take بس لنخلص من هالفكرة. I think Sawti is doing a good job so far to educate people, make them not so scared of having political parties. يعني أنا مثلاً I've checked your website several times. I keep studying my options. أنا هلا I'm eligible to vote. I want to know مين I can vote for, who really speaks to me as a person, who I feel I'm most comfortable with. في قصة I can't really 100% trust anyone. Maybe most of the people have this issue لا ما بدي أوثق بحدا, اللي بده يطلع حيطلع أوسخ من اللي قبله أو مثله, ما حيتغير شيء. Might as well just stick to what we have now. It can't get any worse. But
Which is a valid concern because of the past experiences we've had. But we get these questions all the time, right? Like, how can I trust a political party? But there's no reason to really trust any political party. The goal isn't to trust a political party. It's to more agree with those parties' values and their vision rather than to trust them, because we want to be able to hold those parties accountable. Like, if you join a party or you like a certain party and you see something you don't like, like, we encourage asking questions and giving feedback. Being an active citizen means getting involved not only to learn, but also to provide feedback to those parties and hold them accountable for their promises and for their values.
So the party that piqued my interest كانت Citizens in a State, mainly because I'm an LEU student. I had this one instructor, she was a candidate in 2018 اسمها رانيا المصري, and I love her so much. عن جد إنه she's one of my favorite people, a very inspirational person. وبس عرفت إنه she was in this particular party, I started looking into it. وشفت on their website they have a plan. It's available to anyone. فيني يشوفوا what exactly they're planning to do afterwards. So I think that's really important. I was able to do that through Sawti. And I didn't know they had an Instagram or a website or anything. I just checked Sawti. ثاقبت, I came across the Instagram account with my recommendations. وقلت يلا, I'm just gonna check it out. وشفت the several alternatives that you guys had up on your website. وأنا شفت, okay, Citizens in a State. I know someone that was a candidate عندهم. Let me see what they're doing now. لأنه آخر مرة I read anything about my instructor كان maybe in like 2019 or something. I was checking it. I was like looking at their website, the plans they have, what they're doing. Like they're having hill meetups where people can have discussions, conversations, بيحكوا عن their concerns. The like overall understanding أو deciding whether or not هيدي الparty is credible أو it's worth voting for. Not only إنه I was able to do that through Sawti, that was amazing. نفس الوقت, I think these alternative political parties are doing the right thing. هيدي فكرة إنه they're having personal discussions, they're having meetups, they're building the trust. وأكيد حقهم الناس ما يكونوا very quick to trust the parties, بس كمان this has to do with their understanding of the political scene overall. إنه you don't just vote وبتخلص هونيك. You have to keep up with them. You have to make sure إنه they're doing their job, like everything we just spoke about.
Yeah, and even just like keeping up with the news on these alternative parties from abroad, you could see clearly. I don't think any of the political alternative parties have been able to really get as organized and maybe focus as much in their outreach as multinat في دولة have so far. I've been seeing those talks they've been having with different cities across Lebanon. That's very effective, and that goes towards building the trust we're talking about. And it's also very important for people to realize, you're not really choosing someone to marry forever, right? Like, this is purely based on a specific platform that has a specific time when this platform makes sense, and you're voting for a specific time window, and you hold people accountable, and you're not married to your choice forever. And it doesn't mean that it's getting out of the mentality of, okay, this is my religion, this is my sect, so this is my party, regardless of what they do. I'm defending this party because khalas, I was born into this religion, therefore I was born into this one of two political parties, let's say at most, and this is basically like my soccer team, and I'm supporting them regardless. This isn't the mentality. The mentality is, regardless of your identity, regardless of the identity of a political party, outside of their political identity, nothing matters. The platform is what matters. Their political identity is what matters, and that's based off of which you decide either to support or to remove your support from a political party. Like, people develop, people learn, so nothing is forever, and that's why it's very important to kind of instill this new mentality of voting based off of platform, voting based off of whatever new projects they have for Lebanon, rather than the current focus on identity politics, which kind of make people feel like they're imprisoned in their political party, and there's some sort of shaming or guilt if they steer away from their political party. Even when they say it, like even today, like there's a huge crisis, and all these political parties are coming out and saying basically the same thing. Some of them tell you start a garden in front of your house. Some of them tell you if you could grow whatever tomatoes on your roof, go for it. Another one tells you if you could gather 7 people in your neighborhood and buy tank واحدة مازوت or tank واحدة بنزين and split and carpool together like that. Like these are the solutions they're offering, which none of these are solutions. Like these are just like guides to survival in a system that's by all means the system is dead. Like the system is dead. When the money dries up, there's nothing for these people to give their supporters, and it's just a ticking time bomb. And that's why it's very important to see these alternative parties organized, even in the midst of these very, very, like I can't even imagine how difficult it is just logistically organizing such meetups where you don't know how the internet's going to be, you don't know how electricity is going to be, you don't know if you're going to have fuel for your car. So I definitely like what they're doing is highly commendable. Well, more power to them. Well, hopefully Sawti is able to kind of make their voices louder and give them a larger audience, because the work that alternative political parties are doing, that is the essential work. Everything around it, including Sawti, that's just added to the essential work of forming these political parties, forming these political identities, and giving people something to believe in and vote based off of.
Just to go back like a little bit to your question, and to like, we understand that people don't really like to be affiliated with specific political parties. But being an active citizen means, you know, allowing yourself to be affiliated with them, but not to follow things blindly like we do now, right? It's more of an identity kind of game now, where you follow, or traditional parties want their followers to just follow them blindly, and they don't have specific stances on issues. And we think that being an active citizen is retaining your independent judgment while you join a party, because that judgment is crucial to holding your party accountable, right? And your public servants accountable, which is the mindset that we're trying to change in Lebanon, that belonging to a party doesn't mean joining like a cult and agreeing to every point. It means challenging those points and joining the party that you align yourself with. And which is why you see a lot of different alternative parties, because political parties are meant to have opinion diversity within and on the exterior as well.
I agree with قصة إنه finding a party you agree with and you're comfortable with, لأنه نحن we're just so used to قصة إنه my party is my identity. يعني قبل كل شيء who I'm affiliated with says who I am. Like as a person, it says so much about my character, about what I believe in. People أكيد they're scared of هيدي القصة إنه I don't want people to think إنه this party is who I am, هيدي alternative. But just to understand إنه these guys are just here to make sure you have a common interest, have common your goal is the same thing, which is to have إنه يكون the country livable at this point, إنه just تكون the country livable. Maybe like everything we're going through هلا, the existing political parties, they're using it to their advantage. يعني ما بدي سمي حدا because I don't know to what extent this is gonna get me in trouble. بس في بمناطق معينة بيجي مسؤول حزب بيصير يعطي مصاري للمستشفيات، بيصير يقول إنه أوكي أنا أمنت مازوت لهيدي العائلة وهيدي العائلة وأمنت لهم أدوية it's very parasitic. يعني حسسوك إنه هلأ بهالوضع ما حدا وقف حدي غير هيدا الزعيم اللي كنا عم نقول عنه إنه سرق وحرامي وفاسد وما بعرف شو. ما في حدا غيره وقف حدي. Maybe I should still stick to the cycle. It's really disgusting to hear إنه what they're doing هلأ, taking advantage of إنه العالم عايشة بتعتير they really want it to stay this way ليبقوا هن موجودين. يعني
of course, they use this as their own to extend their clientelist networks.
يعني مثلا بطرابلس I know people there وكان في فترة كتير ولعت كرمال there was a child that was at risk of dying because ما كان في كهرباء و they needed an oxygen machine. فإنه الناس ولعوا نزلوا على الطرقات بلشوا يقوصوا they scared الجيش away وشو اللي صار بعد يومين؟ سكتوا completely. وليش؟ If you ask someone in بطرابلس they'll tell you إنه جابوا لنا مازوت كرمال ما بقى ننزل على الطريق. how horrible is it إنه تشوف شعب قد ايه they're so desperate for the most basic things they're entitled to naturally as citizens, يكونوا هالقد قتلانين حالهم إنه يتنازلوا عن all of their values وكل هالfight to be like free من كل هالقرف وهالأحزاب. بيتنازلوا عنهم كلهم بس to be given هاي البيسك need that they're just عن جد إنه حيلا بلد بتروح لعنده بتقول له إنه أنا الدولة ما عم تعطيني مازوت إنه بيضوي راسهم إنه ليش يعني الدولة ما عم تعطيكم مازوت you know they're taking advantage of this وعن جد you just feel bad for الشعب و you just ما إلك عين تقلن إنه نزلوا وثوروا جربوا تطلعوا من هالسايكل لأنه لك شو عم بيصير فيهم يعني it's really horrible to hear about this seeing إنه they're willing to give up حيلا شيء بس ليعيشوا like to stay alive ومش إنه in an exaggerated manner to stay alive بكل معنى الكلمة.
Yeah, and I think you even saw that like more. I know you said but you saw that specifically now for like in the fuel crisis. You saw I saw explicit videos where people were waiting and they were waiting in hours and they got to the front of the line and they were like عبيلنا بنزين and he was like sorry معك بطاقة القوات. So these things are happening explicitly, not to single out the قوات, but all these parties have their different antics to kind of, it's like a final breath of the current system they have in place, but none of it is sustainable. None of it is sustainable, not just because of what's happening in the country, but because no other established power in the world wants to fund this anymore. Because even for them, and even for outside parties that have no care except for having a quote-unquote stable Lebanon at any price, even they no longer see this as a reasonable investment. You know, it's not sustainable for them. We can't have a conference every couple years for them to shuffle in hundreds of millions into Lebanon to keep the system going a couple more years. So there's been a complete loss of faith in the international community, as well as for the citizens in Lebanon, and of course Lebanese expats abroad. So that's why it's very important that these alternative parties continue to do what they're doing. It's very important that more than just the political parties do what they're doing, that citizens not just feel like they're waiting for these political parties, because at the end of the day, these political parties should be the reflection of those citizens. So if I'm a citizen, I'm currently seeing how the situation is in Lebanon. If I'm in Lebanon, or if I'm not, or if I'm an expat abroad, it's on me to kind of choose one of these parties, or at least educate myself on these parties and see how can I help, even if I don't agree with everything they're doing. If there's a political party, because these political parties aren't like customized to a specific individual. And these are options that are out there. You have the free will to study these different options, to see which pieces of these political parties speak to you most. And then then when you join them, you don't join them as a finished product. You join them and you help further shape them, further develop them to kind of address the things that you thought they were lacking before you joined them. You know, you're not just there to vote for them. You're there to actually add value. You know, all these, there's no one more experienced with the hardships of the Lebanese people than the Lebanese people themselves. We don't need someone to speak for us or like come up with platforms for us. We know what we're going through. We know that the situation right now is ridiculous and that 1, 2, 3, 4 need to happen. So I'm going to see which one of these alternative parties addresses 1, 2, 3, 4, or if they just address the first two, can I help them also cover the last two? It's a process. It's nothing is set in stone. It's something you can actively participate in and make richer and make better leading up to elections and beyond elections as well.
I really want to know into you guys, like, as someone that's living in Lebanon or as someone that's an expat, عن جد personal opinion ومش إنه بعيد عن your involvement with Sawti or maybe as a Sawti representative هلا on the podcast. And do you feel like within the next few years عن جد في شيء بده يتغير? I feel like this is an important question to ask. بس كمان I want to see like as someone عايش هون as an expat يعني what exactly your thought process is.
So I guess we'll start with me as an expat. There's a lot of, so as you're even organizing for Sawti or for like the upcoming elections, a lot of people ask the same question. Okay, what's actually going to change? Do you think it's going to change? All this stuff. And to me, that question, I understand why like people ask it, but to me, it's not really a beneficial question because it kind of puts you in this natural state of, okay, like what's one extra vote gonna do? The system is what it is. Our parents told us this. We're experiencing it now. Blah 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 blah. So it kind of puts you in just this like cycle of like, okay, Lebanon sucks now, and it's just always gonna suck. So the alternative to that is kind of thinking, okay, what's my role in this? What are the different avenues? What's changed? And I do think things have changed from October 17. And again, going back to just taking the simple university experience I had with the AB Secular Club when I was there. When we joined and we were trying to be like this alternative party running in elections, we were looked at as crazy people. We were a group of maybe 20 people. We were literally looked at and like ridiculed and mocked openly in classes, in the cafeteria, wherever we went. We were looked at and these are the crazy dreamers. Let them do their thing. We weren't taken seriously. Now you look at university campuses, political parties aren't finding candidates to run for them from our generation, and that's huge. That the benefits of that might not show up in the next elections in 2022, but the benefits of that are forever. If you're right now not being able to find anyone from this generation to represent you even on campus, what does that say about your future as a political party? All these political parties are on their last breath. How long that breath is, that's negotiable, but this is their last breath. So we need to kind of have, and I know it's easier for me to say as an expat living abroad with all the basic necessities I need, but we need to have the long view. It can't just be like, okay, if nothing happens in 2022, then we failed. That's not what we're doing, because the system that we're trying to overcome, it wasn't built in a couple of years, and the system that's going to remove it isn't going to be built in a couple of years either. But it's fine. The first steps need to happen, whether they're now or they're in 10 years. They're happening now, so it's to our benefit, and there's so much more to look forward to. And there is a lot of opportunities for wins, and we've been seeing them. We saw them on campuses. We saw them in syndicates. And now, there is a lot of promise of potential wins. But of course, there's so many things that are up in the air that you can't control, especially as an expat. There's political parties on the ground in Lebanon that are organizing. That's one thing that I haven't actively participated in yet. There's the electoral law, which again is up in the air. There's the elections date, which again isn't set in stone. There's how do I make sure that the votes that are the ballot boxes in New York are going to make it to Lebanon safely and untampered with. There's so many unknowns, but that doesn't mean that you don't have a role to play. It means you have a bigger role to play. It means you need to make sure you're organized. For example, abroad, at every polling station, you have a representative, making sure that people that they told that they're expecting to vote are actually having the opportunity to vote, making sure that there is some sort of well-established electoral network to kind of make sure that, we aren't seeing any hiccups here, we aren't seeing any barriers to vote there, and kind of keep track of that. But for example, one example of things that we're seeing now, as we're kind of reaching out to different embassies, different consulates for like specific registration dates, specific election dates, all this stuff. So there hasn't been clear communication to the Lebanese embassies and the Lebanese consulates abroad from the government in Lebanon. Like, this is something that we can't really control from here. Like, of course, there could be pressure put from here, but that real pressure needs to be put in Lebanon to make sure that there isn't an active point of kind of removing expats from the voting process, making sure their voice isn't heard, kind of surprising them by the registration deadline, making sure they're not prepared well in advance to vote. So there's so many things out of our hands, a lot of things we try to put pressure on, a lot of things we try to organize around, but it doesn't mean that we don't have a role to play. It doesn't mean that our success or failure will be determined come the next elections, be it May 22 or after that. It's just the first step, and there's a lot that needs to happen, but it's great to see already what's been happening in our generation, in the alternative parties that are forming, in the public opinion, the public thought. We were saying how before people had this even now, there's this allergic reaction to political parties. This is something we need to overcome. This is something you can't talk about elections without talking about political parties. So this is something that we're slowly breaking out of through different alternative parties like Muwatin Muwatinat, like Muntashrin, like all these people that we're seeing, and people are getting the opportunity to meet these parties firsthand, which is something that's foreign to them. It's for the first time. We never see a debate that has people from Al-Uwait, Al-Awni, Hezbollah, Al-Mustaqbal that are out there discussing specific issues. But we are seeing that within alternative parties. So we are creating a new political culture, a new political mentality in citizens that's so valuable, even if it doesn't show its benefits tomorrow. But these things that are being established today are going to benefit Lebanon, not just tomorrow, but for the future to come.
It's really a breath of fresh air بس تسمع someone being like so hopeful وهيك مشجع, just إنه عن جد عم يتغير شيء, لأنه lately everything has been هيك كتير, everyone's been down, really depressed, just not willing to talk about politics. So I hope إنه طارق كمان, like, is being هيك super positive على الموضوع, really hopeful إن حيتغير شيء, لأنه I'm not really gonna tolerate هلا negativity on the podcast اليوم, because like we started on a really positive note.
No, never negativity, always a positive outlook. I mean, I agree with what Ralph was saying. Like you were asking if we see any change in the next couple of years. It really depends on what you think change is, right? Like, let's define change. Are we talking about this whole system being removed? Then I don't think so, but we are starting to do something, and we've been doing something. Again, like what Ralph said about changing the kind of mindset and the political culture in the country, that's the first step, right? It's getting people to become interested, to be engaged again in politics. And that's happening. Ever since the uprising, people have been working on different things. There's people in Lebanon and outside of Lebanon who want to do things, who are creating different alternative movements or initiatives, which is all really good. And I think كمان مثل ما رالف كان عم بيقول, يعني it's just step by step, right? Every citizen has a kind of duty to take it upon themselves and do whatever they can do, whether that's voting, joining an alternative party, helping them. Yeah, I'm just saying that you can already see change happening, right, on campuses and syndicates. I mean, a year or 2 years ago, before the uprising, were you ever able to just walk down the street and curse a certain political figure or something? No. So just like that sense of fear that's escaped us, our kind of interest in being engaged in politics again, that's like, those two things are enough for me to kind of be positive about the future. Not saying that we're going to get 60 or 70 members of parliament in the next elections, but the ball is starting to roll, and that's really good. Each person just has to take the responsibility and, work towards something good in Lebanon.
هلا maybe we can disagree on one thing, إنه هلا okay تغير كل شيء, مش كل شيء, بس إنه تغيرنا for the most part. I still don't think I can safely curse a political party هيك على الشارع, بس like بيجي بالدعوس, بس إنه at least هالمرة إذا دعوست في ناس تدافع عني, مش يقولوا okay لك لشو سبيتي أساساً. So إنه that's change, that's a good thing.
I mean, during the protests in 2015, people would get called in for writing anything on Facebook, right? Now you still have that happening, but
yeah, just quickly to that point, I think public opinion is now behind the revolution, and more than it's ever been, right? Like before, even in 2015, there was sort of a criticism of okay, I'm a secretariat. Early on, there was an idea of I'm a secretariat. But خلاص, now people see that the country, there's a complete paralysis of the country, whether it's secretariat or not secretariat. So the only way moving forward is to kind of understand that, to kind of feel the side effects of this political system firsthand, and then the only way from here is moving forward, moving past that. How do you organize around that? How do you mobilize to get past this? And we're seeing that today. So that on its own, that's something positive to look forward to.
Like personally, مثلا, like seeing the change. أنا أول سنة جامعة, I'd have people come up to me وقت student council elections, يجي يقولوا لي أنا من حزب 1 2 3 صوتي لي. ومش إنه they ask nicely أو شوفوا نحنا what we're gonna stand for, يقولوا صوتي لي.
صوتي لي وبعض لك answers للخصات.
Right.
صح.
Or there was like pizza or like free parking or whatever.
Yeah. They tell you إنه بيبعتوا لك previouss, في منهم بيبلشوا قبل الelection بيقولوا بيبعتوا to certain people هيدا previous لكورس 1 2 3 literally هيك كانوا certain parties بالLAU. هلا the independent candidates are not as ridiculed. I think one of you touched on this point إنه قبل كانوا عشوائي يبزقوا عليهم on campus. Well, that was the case a lot of times. يعني أول شيء it was them not taking independent candidates seriously لأنه بيعرفوا إنه ما حيوصلوا لمحل. But now what happens now إنه their aggression towards independent candidates, it's mostly because they're a threat. بطلت إنه مش حيوصلوا لمحل, they're actually a threat now. So just seeing it jump from هيك لهيك تغير, that was هيك شوي uplifting. إنه إنه إذا بالجامعة بلشنا شوي among the youth عم تتغير هالشغلة, يعني it can reflect on a larger scale يعني على الدولة overall. So عن جد that was a nice scene to see. ما بقى يبزقوا على المستقلين يبزقوا عليهم.
Yeah, me. And not only are we seen as a threat now, but we're seen as like a favorite, and I think we should be seen as a favorite in every elections we're a part of. be it we saw in the cons, we saw it in the syndicates, we saw on campuses. And right now, it's not a surprise if these independents win. It's kind of a surprise if they don't win. And nothing showed that more than the last elections in the syndicate of engineers and architects, where it wasn't just a victory, it was a sweeping victory. That's why I feel like these alternative political parties, there is pressure on them. There is pressure on them because even though they're different, there is pressure on them kind of forming a unified front when it comes to elections, because they don't want to split this momentum amongst themselves. They want to kind of benefit from this positive momentum that's been building elections after elections, to kind of have it built to the top come May of 2022.
It's like a real breath of fresh air إنه خي عم نشوف في ناس that actually want change to happen. وإنه شوي مثلا هلا نقابة المهندسين they had a victory. بعد شوي في نقابات تانية عندهم elections. يعني slowly seeing the independents become known أو alternative parties become known. هيدي لحالها it's very encouraging يعني للشعب. So I think it's gonna keep the ball rolling regardless.
So we all agree on a positive outlook for the next couple of years.
بنشوف وضع البلد. بنشوف وضع البلد. We'll see how positive we last. بس إيه مبدئياً.
Honestly, بس التزيد إنه التحرك تبع the youth and just seeing like all these younger people and our generation, maybe a bit older, maybe a bit younger, just becoming interested and being so active, that's also very reassuring. You know, you're seeing all these new initiatives, all these new movements, mostly led by young people, by young progressive people who have kind of shattered that way of thinking, that traditional way of thinking of Lebanon. And I think that's the future. That gives me the most hope, let's say.
إيه like I see مثلا my sister's 3 years younger than I am. كانت لما كانوا in 10th grade like her friends بلشوا يعملوا NGOs, بلشوا يحكوا عن elections ويحكوا عن what's going on بالبلد. وأنا at that age ما كان معي ولا أي خبر what was going on like politically. I was like 16 17 ما كنت افهم بهالاشياء. It's good to see انه هلا حدا من like when I was that age هن هلا واصلين لهالعمر وقادرين يفكروا بpolitics و elections و actually changing things. انه خي انه عن جد it's really good to see that. يعني انا تاخرت لصير افهم هلا كلنا تاخرنا شوي بس انه it's better late than never. After the revolution وهيك everyone feels like خلص it's your duty to be thinking about these things. That's really good. Seeing the youth are really caring. هلا انتو you guys I wanted to ask this like maybe من شي نص ساعة بس I'm glad we have the ball rolling هلا بالحديث. هلا you have people that contact you ما هيك like people that send you emails أو ما بعرف شو just so they know how things work. صح؟ Do you have people that are much older? يعني مش بس the youth. Do you have people إنه مثلا من عمر أمي وبي اللي more than us عندهم هاي العقلية اللي كتير أنا بدي أنتمي لحزب. هلا my parents منهم هيك بس إنه اللي بيكونوا من هالعمر اللي بيكونوا أكتر شيء ما قادرين to shake off الحزب تاعهم. Do you have people reaching out to you من هاي الفئة العمرية?
Yeah, I wanted to say there's definitely people from all ages that reach out to Sawti, but I personally believe that, especially since like a lot of it is done through social media and stuff like that, I do feel like it's our duty, like our generation, to kind of educate those above us, because again, they're just too kind of blinded by the Civil War experience. And you see even here, like even in New York, like we'd be down there in protests, and like when a specific name comes up, we're like, oh no, don't talk about that person. It's like, okay, like you're obviously not getting the idea, and that's fine. Like I think there also needs to be some sort of an understanding from our generation, and not everyone that's from our parents' generation that still has some sort of support the political party is an idiot. Like that's not the approach that needs to be taken. The approach that needs to be taken is, okay, these are new political parties. Mom, dad, ammo, khalto. Have you guys heard about these new parties that are forming? They believe in 1, 2, 3, 4. What do you think about this? What would you be different? Have this sort of engaging conversation that isn't really threatening to them or their beliefs. It's more like showing them that new things are happening now, And I'm taking it on myself to tell you about them. And if you have any questions, I know you can talk to this person about this party, that person about that party. You can follow this page on Facebook, you can follow this page on Instagram to kind of be educated about it, rather than kind of shame them. إنه أنتوا جيل الحرب الأهلية وكيف بعدكم بتفكروا هيك يا أخي. People are how people are. At the end of the day, you want to kind of draw the benefits out of it rather than just like shaming them and pushing them further into their current political parties. So I think the approach is very important. Definitely people reach out from different ages, but we think that people from our generation that are probably getting the most contact from Sawti content should take it amongst themselves to be ambassadors. And that's why we have the program that's the Sawti ambassadorship. You can join the website. You can check out the website, sawtivoice.org/get involved. Sign up to be an ambassador for Sawti. You could get access to all our content wherever you are in the world, be it in Lebanon, be it abroad. And you kind of be that voice in your community. Because if you're ever in like a room or in a situation or in a community where you feel like no one's really talking about alternative parties, then maybe you're supposed to be that person. Maybe it's on you to take it and be like, okay, what resources do I have to work with? And what can I really start here? And we talk to people that feel like they're alone in this mentality all over. But once they feel like they're part of this larger network that is Sawti, that has people just like them that feel quote unquote alone in leading this effort, they feel like, no, I'm part of something larger. I'm not alone. I have all the resources I need, be it in content, be it in guidance, be it in giving specific talks or whatever resources it is. So I'm more empowered to do so, and that's really the plan. So I definitely encourage all your listeners to check out sawtivoice.org, and again Sawti Voice on Instagram, and fill in the sign-up sheets both in our bios and on our website to see how you could be involved.
Of course, we have a lot of people who are contacting us, whether it's to ask about elections or to ask about political parties or to see how they can help us, and we encourage anyone to come join or to ask questions or whatever. Wherever you live, because like Ralph was saying, anybody can make a difference. Anybody can be that person in their small or large communities that passes on information, that talks to people, that engages people, that maybe canvasses in their areas for elections, so anyone, young, old, wherever you live, like we really encourage you to come join the community and start helping us mobilize.
I think this is a great way to end the podcast. I think Sawti, above all else, it's teaching you like your personal responsibility, your role. Start with yourself before pointing fingers. So I think that's maybe the core of the initiative. I think that's the first step. So I really want to thank you guys for joining us today. Thank you to all our listeners still tuning in. Make sure to check the rest of our episodes and watch out for any upcoming episodes. This is Beirut Buzz.